Have you ever wondered why your homemade Kung Pao chicken never tastes like your favorite takeout spot? Today I'll show you the biggest mistakes home cooks make and reveal the secret restaurant techniques that give it that unmistakable flavor. From how chefs treat white meat versus dark meat to the exact ingredients your favorite restaurant uses. By the end of this video, you'll finally be able to make legit takeout-style Kung Pao chicken at home. Now, the first thing we'll need to deal with is the chicken. There's an eternal debate whether to use dark meat or white meat. Typically with most takeout restaurants, they're using chicken thighs or dark meat. With more traditional recipes, they almost exclusively use white meat chicken breast for Kung Pao. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but their preparations do differ slightly. So I'll show you how to prepare both. For dark meat, you always want to grab boneless, skinless chicken thighs. We'll start by cleaning them up and removing any bits of fat or tendon you can find. One of the tricks I learned in takeout kitchens to make the meat more tender is to turn the chicken over, smooth side down, and lightly pound the backs with the dull edge of your knife. You don't want to go overboard, but this will loosen the muscle fibers, which weakens their structure and makes the protein feel much softer when you chew it. Another mistake many home cooks make is cutting their chicken way too big. With a lot of takeout dishes, especially those made with chicken breast, you want big chunks of meat. But with Kung Pao, you ideally want really small, bite-sized pieces. To cut the thighs, we'll begin by slicing them into roughly half-inch strips, like this. Then take each of these strips, turn them perpendicular to you, and cut them into half-inch cubes. If you've done it correctly, they should look like this. When you're ready to marinate the meat, add 8 ounces of chicken to a bowl and pour in 1 teaspoon of Chinese light soy sauce, a 1/4 teaspoon of dark soy sauce for color, 1 teaspoon of Shaoxing cooking wine, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of white sugar, 1/8 teaspoon of MSG, and 1/8 teaspoon of ground white pepper. And you really want to work the marinade into the chicken with your hands for a few minutes. Squeeze it through your fingers and treat it like it swiped left on you. This deep tissue massage will further break down the muscle fibers and make the meat much more tender. Once the chicken is well marinated, add 1 teaspoon of cornstarch and mix until evenly coated. A lot of people think cornstarch tenderizes meat, but really, it just creates a thin coating that insulates the chicken so it cooks more gently. To finish, squeeze in 1 teaspoon of a neutral oil and stir it in. This will help keep the pieces from clumping together when we stir fry them later. And you want to marinate for at least 30 minutes or up to a day in advance in the fridge. For white meat, it's nearly the same process with a couple of key differences. Firstly, chicken breast is much more lean than thigh meat, so it tends to dry out more quickly under the high heat of wok cooking. So, how do we remedy this? Instead of cooking it directly in the wok, like we'll do with the thighs, we'll batter the chicken breast with egg whites and shallow fry it so it's already cooked before the final stir fry. This will add an additional layer of insulation to the meat so it cooks more gently, which will produce a much more tender final result. We'll start by butterflying the chicken breast to get 2 thin, even pieces. Then slice each section into roughly half-inch strips like this. Then take each strip, turn it perpendicular to you, and cut them into half-inch cubes. In a good Kung Pao, all the ingredients, the chicken, the scallions, the peppers, and peanuts, should all be roughly the same small, bite-sized pieces. Now, this is where we'll treat the white meat a little differently than the dark meat. Here I've got 8 ounces of diced chicken breast. And to that, I'll sprinkle over a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and massage it into the meat for a couple of minutes. This is a trick a lot of Chinese restaurants use to make lean meat much more tender. After the baking soda, we'll proceed with all of the marinade ingredients we used with the thighs, really working them into the chicken with our hands like we did in the last step. Next, we'll toss in half an egg white and massage it in until all the pieces are evenly coated. The baking soda and the egg white are both alkaline, and these will tenderize the meat so it stays extra juicy. After the egg white, sprinkle in 2 teaspoons of cornstarch and stir it into the batter until all the pieces are covered. And finally, squeeze in 1 teaspoon of neutral oil and work it into the chicken to prevent clumping when we fry it up later. And just like with the thighs, let it sit for at least 30 minutes or up to overnight. While the protein is marinating, it's a perfect time to prepare the sauce. One of the key differences between Western-style Kung Pao and more traditional Chinese recipes is they tend to be a lot saucier. Here's a standard takeout Kung Pao from a very popular restaurant near my house. As you can see, it's doused in a sweet and sour and mildly spicy brown sauce. Now, let's compare that to a more traditional version from one of my favorite restaurants in Houston, Mala Sichuan. And seriously, shout out to them. Everything on their menu is incredible, especially the red oil dumplings. Notice how their Kung Pao is a much drier dish that is more typical of classic Sichuanese cuisine. But for Western takeout style, you really want to lean heavily into using more sauce. Before we make the sauce, here's another mistake I see all the time: using the wrong vinegar. Many recipes call for Chinese black vinegar, but in every takeout kitchen I've visited, they use plain white distilled vinegar. If your homemade version didn't taste like your favorite restaurant, that's probably why. Black vinegar works great in dishes like hot and sour soup, but in stir fries, its subtle flavor burns off over the high heat of wok cooking. With that out of the way, to make the sauce, let's start with 2 teaspoons of white sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of MSG, a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch. Then pour in 2 teaspoons of light soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of chicken broth or water, half a teaspoon of Shaoxing cooking wine, and 1 tablespoon of distilled white vinegar. Whisk everything together until the dry seasonings are dissolved into the sauce. And a side note, you do get more control over the viscosity of your sauce by using a cornstarch slurry, but when dealing with such small amounts, I just mix the starch straight in. You can make this several days in advance, just keep it in a covered container in the fridge. While the sauce is chilling in the fridge, let's thank Suvie for sponsoring this video. Suvie is a smart countertop oven and meal delivery service that takes care of dinner for you. You just load in the meal, scan the recipe card, and pick the exact time you want to sit down and eat. Their cool-to-cook technology keeps everything safely refrigerated during the day, then automatically cooks it for you, so you don't even have to be home to get things started. That means no shopping, no prep, no dishes, and no waiting on takeout. They offer more than 50 chef-curated meals to choose from every week, including plenty of takeout classics, so there's always something new to try. And this isn't microwaved food. Suvie has more than 15 cooking modes like air fry, slow cook, bake, steam, and sous vide. So the meals come out just like you made them. Crispy air-fried chicken, slow-cooked stews, perfectly baked pasta, even sous vide steak. And the best part, you can try it risk-free for 100 days. So check out the link in the video description for a special offer and see how Suvie can save you a ton of time and simplify your dinner routine. Another characteristic of Kung Pao Chicken is the heavy use of dried red chilies. The peppers really aren't for spice, you usually don't eat them. They're added more to flavor the oil with a subtle, roasted, smoky note when you're blooming the aromatics. You'll see several different types at most Asian grocery stores, but what you want to look for are the medium-sized, deep red ones. They'll typically be labeled as dried red chilies or whole dried chilies. If you're not able to find these, you can use more common varieties like Thai bird's eye or Chilies de Árbol. But I caution you, these are significantly spicier than their Chinese counterparts. When I was testing this recipe, I used Árbol because that's what I had on hand, and I almost had to call the fire department to hose me down, so don't be like me. And a quick storage trick for dried chilies. Keep them in a sealed Ziploc bag in your freezer, and they'll stay fresh much longer than if you had just kept them in your pantry. To prepare the chilies, you'll just cut them into half-inch pieces like this. Then take your pile and jiggle it around to remove most of the seeds. Most of the heat comes from the inner membrane, not the seeds. They're basically flavorless, so I usually remove them. When you're ready to cook the dish, it's essential to have everything ready to go before you start. Because this is a stir fry, it'll come together in a matter of just a few minutes, so it's not really possible to prep as we're cooking. To get started, here I've got a dry wok over medium heat. Toss in a 1/4 cup of unsalted peanuts, and we'll just kick these around for a minute or two or until you see they're lightly charred. Dry roasting makes peanuts crunchier and brings out their flavor, the same reason we toast nuts for desserts. When the peanuts look good, set them aside in a small bowl. Then heat up your wok again over medium-high heat. When you're up to temp, squeeze in about a tablespoon or 2 of neutral oil and swirl it around to cover the wok. Toss in your marinated chicken thighs and press them down in a single layer. Leave it alone for about a minute so the first side sears and doesn't stick to the cooking surface. Then just stir fry the meat for about 2 to 3 minutes. With Kung Pao, you're not really looking to brown the chicken, just to cook it through until it's done. Then remove the meat to a separate bowl from the peanuts and set it aside. Heat the wok again over medium heat and squeeze in another tablespoon of neutral oil. Toss in 2 teaspoons of minced garlic and 1 teaspoon of minced ginger and saute them for about 20 to 30 seconds, or just until you notice they're fragrant. Then drop in about 4 to 6 sliced chilies and toss them with the aromatics for about 10 to 20 seconds, or just until you notice they're slightly darkening in color. Add the cooked chicken to the wok and mix it well with the aromatic infused oil. When everything looks good, pour in the sauce along with the white sections of 2 to 3 sliced green onions. Toss everything together until you notice the sauce has thickened to your liking, and then kill the heat. Add the toasted peanuts to the wok and drizzle in half a teaspoon of sesame oil. Mix everything together so it's evenly distributed, and this is a classic takeout-style Kung Pao chicken. For chicken breast, we'll follow much the same process, except we won't be stir-frying the meat to cook it. So what you'll do is heat up a couple cups of neutral oil in a large wok or pot to 300 degrees. When you're up to temp, dump in the chicken and let it fry for a few seconds before breaking it up with your spatula. You'll just cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes or until it's done. Since the pieces are so small, they'll cook very quickly. Then remove it from the oil, drain well, and use the cooked chicken breast with the exact same recipe outlined in the previous steps. Just tossing it in like the cooked chicken thighs after you've bloomed the aromatics. And that's it for the white meat version. Very simple. Now, before we get to the taste test, I want to share a couple of extra tips. When you're preparing the ingredients for stir fry, if you take the trimmings from the garlic, ginger, and scallions and pour just a bit of boiling water over them and let it sit till it comes to room temperature, it'll create an aromatic flavored brine you can add to the chicken during the marination step. You'll just drizzle in about a tablespoon and it really does enhance the flavor. This is more of a traditional technique that I haven't seen in takeout kitchens, but it does work. And secondly, I know a lot of people will ask why I didn't use Sichuan pepper in this recipe. The truth is, I've never tasted it in any takeout style Kung Pao chicken. That said, if you want to use it at home, it adds amazing flavor. Sichuan pepper isn't really a peppercorn at all. It's the dried husk from the prickly ash shrub. It's not spicy like a chili, but it gives that famous numbing sensation in your mouth that Sichuanese cuisine is known for. It's kind of like when you're at a house party and you lock yourself in the bathroom with your best friend at 3 a.m. and you do one of these numbers. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. But here's how to prep it properly. Toast a handful in a dry pan over medium heat for a minute or two, or until you smell a slight citrus fragrance. You don't want to burn them. Let them cool, then pick out any black seeds you find. These are what cause that gritty texture if you've ever made Sichuan pepper at home. What you want are the husks. Grind the remainder in a mortar and pestle or a spice mill, then sift the powder through a fine mesh strainer to remove any tough bits. When you're cooking, add about half a teaspoon while you're blooming the aromatics. It's potent, so start small. I hope this helps. All right, back to the taste test. This dish is a testament to the creativity of American Chinese cuisine. Local family-owned restaurants took a Sichuanese classic and, using only the ingredients they had on hand, created a culinary icon we all know and love today. And that's why the takeout version deserves our respect. And if you enjoyed this video, check out my hot and sour soup video right here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.